Hello. Today we're going to learn how to draw eyes. You can probably find a lot of tutorials on how to draw eyes on the internet, but the more you learn, from different artists, the more you kind of can tend to develop your own style. Don't only just go on YouTube for artists. You can go watch real life, look at different like things inside books, and just like even Pinterest. I usually go on Pinterest a lot to just learn some things that just to assist me while I'm drawing. So actually, eyes were the first thing I started drawing. I started with Draw with Jazza, and I remember it was like one summer, and I just thought that maybe I could just give it a try. We weren't really doing anything. We were on vacation. We were just sitting in the hotel room the whole time, and I just decided to draw eyes because I just had this character in my head. I wanted to start with something easy. So one thing about eyes is it's really like a circle and a foot or a football. Now I draw a circle because the eyeball is actually a circle, but the football shape is really just the skin that goes around the eyeball. So what I mean is when you draw an eye like this, and this is just going to be like a normal kind of eye. It's like the skin kind of comes in and just kind of comes over. And actually, this is how different expressions of the eye are going to be. This is either going to be a wide kind of eye, like someone looking wide, or it's going to be a normal kind of eye. I think that may be wide. It depends on really the style too. If you look at like Wind Waker, and you see the eyes that he has, usually his normal eyes are kind of wide like this. And then there's other styles that are a little bit more realistic, where the eyes just kind of when the eye's just kind of resting. This could have an effect on the. I think it's there's the pupil, and I don't know what goes around the pupil. It's what creates your eye color. Um, feel free to put it in the comments if you want. I don't remember it at the top of my head. I think iris is coming to my mind, and so I'm going to be drawing the iris. So usually with eyes, you'd have the pupil kind of up top here, but because of how the eyes are kind of how it's kind of open like this, the it would just look like he's looking up. So he or she, it doesn't really matter. They're looking straight at us. So I'm going to reflect that with the pupil. And maybe this is sort of like a cartoony kind of eye. You can look at real life. You can look like for a more realistic version or comics. I really liked Rob Marzullo. He has some really good stuff, and his eye drawings are pretty realistic. And that's basically how you draw an eye, or a set of eyes. Sometimes it's difficult to draw something symmetrically when you're just doing traditional drawing. I know when you're doing digital drawing, you can just like take this eye, like this one, and then you just flip it over. I usually do traditional drawing, so I don't really have that benefit. And right now I'm just drawing the eyes. I mean eyebrows. So I think he's just going to be a neutral for now. This is like kind of a neutral, cartoony type of eye. To save time, I'll probably just draw eyes and just draw the left eye instead of both eyes. Just like to show you different styles, different ways of doing things, and so on. So how about we try another style? And I usually, no matter the style, I usually just always draw with a circle. Draw a circle. One trick, if you want to draw a perfect circle, the trick is not to. The trick is to draw a bunch of circles like this until it becomes a perfect circle. So that's what I'm doing right now. So I'm thinking a little bit of a different type of style, and it still takes that football shape. Still takes that football shape and kind of deals with it. Maybe something like this. takes that football shape, and it's just kind of different. It just slightly differs depending on the eye that you're using. So you see how this is sort of football shaped? And actually the eye pupil or something like this would be the corner of it. The eye inside the eyelids, and then this is like where it's like the ball is like facing us. It's the closest to us here, and then it's kind of curving over here. And then if you keep that in mind, you could probably draw as many different kinds of eyes as you can. And for this one, I'm just going to have this one like this, and then have the pupil like that. So one trick that makes it so that your character isn't looking up is always have the pupil look straight at you. And it's not making it go close to this eyelid. If you want to make him more menacing, or you want to make it more close to the eyelid, the top eyelid, you bring that eyelid down like this. And then I could draw a little bit of a more realistic kind of brow. This isn't the kind of style I use. I usually have something like this, and sometimes I actually cut off the sides here so that they're like I would erase them here, and then it would be like when they're looking straight at you, you wouldn't see that, like them connecting here. Sort of kind of like the Wind Waker. It kind of reminds me of the Wind Waker. I haven't played that game yet. I really should. My favorite Zelda game is Majora's Mask, but honestly, I haven't played too many Zelda games. I've only played that on the 3DS, and apparently it's not a really good remake, but I still loved it. I guess it just depends on who you ask about it. I've seen people talk about how they did some stuff like the Zoro swimming and stuff like that. That wasn't the best implemented. So anyway, this is sort of like a normal-ish eye. I think it's also like a kind of a fierce kind of eye. You see how he's kind of looking at you, and his brow is down like this. So he or she is kind of looking at you, menacing. Usually, if it's a girl, I give them eyelashes. But let's try different expressions with this eye. So how about, what does it look like? Maybe if he's surprised. This is a kind of a new style for me, so I just kind of playing around with this. You honestly just remember the football shape and the circle. And you see how this is kind of wide, but it's still the same style. I just take the eyelids here, and I just make them a little bit wider. And this is almost not like he's super shocked. Maybe he's seeing something awe-inspiring, and he's just looking at it with wonder and amazement. The eyebrow might be kind of like this. I haven't really drawn in this style before, so it's kind of interesting. I don't know how to really get that to look like surprise instead. It looks like, because of this bend, I always think it's like it's always kind of in this kind of angry look to it. So one thing is, if you want to make someone be surprised, or or they see something amazing, or they're just shocked, like their friend just scared them, and they usually have them like this. I think if their friend scared them, or they were really scared, it would be a lot wider, kind of like this. But that's just kind of, that's for another eye. How about we try that for this one? We'll make them a little bit more surprised. Now I'm thinking really wide here. Now, if you can't follow along with me, for whatever reason, don't be too worried. Like if your eye doesn't look exactly like mine, if it's a little bit different, really, you know, as artists, we kind of have different ways of looking at things, seeing things mentally, and that kind of reflects in the kind of artwork we have. Now this person's really shocked. They're so shocked that it looks like this is where their nose is supposed to be instead of over here. Oh man. One thing when I started drawing is that I was always, I hated how I wouldn't be, my work would not look exactly like the people I follow, like Mikey Mega Mega or Draw with Jazza or Rob Marzullo. They would always be a little bit different. It would always be, they wouldn't always capture that kind of the exact style that they do. But honestly, you gotta just own it, and you see it when you see like this compared to like some other person who probably just draws their eyes like this, and they're like, "Oh, done! I drew an eye." You could appreciate how far you've come and how far what you're able to do with your eyes, um, instead of just like a circle and a dot or just a dot. There's nothing wrong with these styles too, because sometimes like you see cartoons like Billy and Mandy and stuff like that, where they have just where they just have dots for eyes. I think Billy had dots for eyes, and there's nothing wrong with that. It just depends on what you're using it for. And how about we try a little bit? Let me try a little bit of a squintier kind of eye. So I'm doing the same kind of style, and this one's going to be a little squinty. Like he's thinking angry thoughts. He sees his arch nemesis, and he has a bigger sword than him. They live in a world with big swords. Don't read into it more than it needs to be. And he fights. He has a sword like Cloud from Final Fantasy. Maybe his name is Sky because it's like Cloud. Nah, sorry. Sorry, I'll leave the room. I'll leave. This is almost like he has sun in his the sun's in his eyes. It doesn't seem very intense. Let me try something different here. And you could do this too with your eyes, is if you just kind of like play around with it. I think that really the problem is that his pupil is too like it's just not like close to his pupil, so it doesn't look like he's staring menacingly. Looks a lot better. What's cool about eyes is you can kind of play around with it because it's so simple. You could try different types of poses, different types of things so easily. And it's not like you have to draw an entire figure or entire thing just to practice these more advanced techniques. Like usually it's a more advanced technique to try these different kind of eyes or different expressions. I remember I was just happy to draw an eye at the end of the day, or when I first started to draw an eye or a nose or a mouth without it looking like it wasn't real or anything like that. But with an eye, since it's so simple, you could just try all these type of different things. Just see what comes of it. What kind of style are you going to create? What kind of things are you going to do? And I did have an idea of what I was doing here. Ooh, don't really remember. How about like a sad eye? How about one that's kind of sad? I have references here just to see like how I would draw a sad eye. This is actually, I think this has to do with like it has to do with the eyelids, but it's also with the brow as well. And I'll show you in a minute. Now, just staying with that one style. I haven't really planned this tutorial at all. I just decided to draw eyes. I have a few reference sheets with me just to check and see, if I run out of ideas or I don't know what I'm doing here. And this one's a little bit more wider, like this, like kind of like the surprised eye, I'd say. This is like when he lost somebody. That 8-year-old stole took his candy to he only had 25 cents, and fortunately a kid beat him to the gumball machine before he could get there. Or, you know, something more serious. You can fill in the blanks. I hope you're getting something out of this. I hope that this is helping you with your drawing, with your journey as an artist. Or if you just want to have fun and just draw eyes, you're just starting out, or you just want to draw eyes. I hope you're enjoying this. I hope you get something out of this. One thing, you know, this is not just about me, but it's also about the other people that I can help and make their lives a little bit easier, just like their journey a little bit easier. I wouldn't have gotten as far as I did if it wasn't for um, the YouTube tutorials online, if it wasn't for the Udemy courses I took. And I want to bring that back to other people. And you see how in this sad one, so let's say this is his nose, right? His nose is over here. There's like this little line you can do, like this, just to show that sadness. And you know, I don't claim to be an expert. This might not be the best sad looking eye that, you know, you've ever seen. There might be some more factors into it, but brows also play a part in the eye. They also make it more expressive, and they're very helpful in bringing out that emotion. One thing with anger, you can also have this. You see, there's this kind of like, and then his other eye, it would have this. This is like I think the brow line kind of changes its shape depending on what the expression of the character is. And let's try one more. This one is going to be an extra. This one's going to be they see the world. This is actually going to be very similar to this one. This is going to be very similar to like all like wow, I just saw this thing that was amazing. Or just innocence. I haven't done it in this style before, so it might not be perfect, so bear with me. Usually you want to keep it, it's kind of like the shocked kind of eye. And I think more things play a part with it, you know, if you don't do it in this way. I kind of do it where I have the eye here, and then I would draw little bubbles like this. Just to so that I think that just kind of shows innocence or just kind of wonder, like a childlike wonder. Sometimes you can do this also apply. You have to use other parts of the body to do this. If you don't want to just have the bubble eyes, if you want to make it a little bit more realistic. And also the brow kind of plays a part. I think that it's better when the brow isn't like a full like semicircle. It's kind of like this. Like this is sort of like an open kind of brow. Like they are looking at you and they, you know, want to be your friends. And then their nose would be right here. So I hope this helped you with expressions, but let's go a little bit further. How else can eyes look? What other designs are there? So usually I'm gonna just show you the different designs that I use or I've seen. One of the ones, this is actually, I'll show you the most common one I use. I actually would draw characters from my novel and using this eye. And this is female because most of my characters are female. So this is one where I have it all cut. The sides are cut off with the eyeball when it looks straight at you. And actually, I have this, even though this is not something you'd see in real life. This is just a way that I interpret the eye or I see the eye. And then if I add these little sparkles, you kind of see like this is sort of like an innocent kind of eye, an eye that's looking at you with that kind of childlike wonder. This one actually looks a lot more like it than the one that I made previously. It might just be because I haven't done that style before, and it was just something I came up with on the fly. Um, and then like when I have it on the side, that's when I draw the corners. That's when I draw this. That's when I draw this. And one thing you can do, you see how the iris is a circle, the side and pupil is a circle. When a circle's not looking towards you, it becomes an oval. So you can see this oval creates a cylinder. This cylinder isn't facing you, it's facing to the side of you. So that's what you can do with the iris. You just make it into a, and if I were to draw this all the way around, it would look like a oval. And this is just to show different ways. This is one of the first things I learned about like drawing things in different angles and different dimensions. There's a lot of things that go involved in it, like how a square looks when you look side on. And these eyelashes aren't the best. I would actually, if I was doing this a little bit more seriously, I would probably just make these eyelashes be kind of close to the one that I drew initially, this one. I was just drawing this. Usually you want to have your eyelashes facing the eye, going this way. So I'm actually going to change that real quick, just like as an example. Hey, look at that. I'm learning things too. And then let's say I want to go a little bit more detailed with this eye instead of just having it be like this. I'll draw just these little bubbles, just to show, it's the same kind of eye. I'll try to draw some more features. So one thing is that the nose kind of comes in. If you have two eyes here, the nose kind of comes in like this. This is kind of like this is just an example. Not really putting too much detail into this, and then this is where the nose is. So it kind of creates this shape where it kind of tucks in like this. And as I feel like I want to incorporate this shape into my art style, just because I kind of like it. I like how it's beautiful, how it looks beautiful to me. It looks kind of like you're showing some sort of beauty in the eye. And usually when you develop your style, you just find things you like and you don't like. Sometimes you find things on accident, which is always fun when it works in your favor. And this is just a more detailed eye, as you can see. Did my best to keep my hand out of the way so you can see what I'm drawing here. I'm just kind of just scribbling. But for fun, we'll do it side on as well. I'm not really used to this style, so this might not be the best, but let me see if I can do it. With drawing, you always want to try new things. You want to try and push the limits of what you can do. Don't always be afraid to try something different and have someone might, make fun of you for it. Who cares what they think? This is about you. This is about you enjoying the journey. And I think because uh, it's looking this way, you might have this kind of shortened. Although I might be wrong. Don't quote me on that. Don't just follow that as a word of advice. I'm not sure exactly. What's interesting about the eye is that usually on the end there's a little lash like that, and then maybe the lashes kind of come in like this. Just something I'm trying to discover myself. It kind of, yeah, I guess you would think of it as, since you have to think of it in 3 dimensions, as the eye is kind of coming toward you. This is where the this is where it's closest. This is where it's farthest, and I would say that it kind of follows this kind of pattern usually, because these things are pointing out of the eye, like this. So this is what I think it looked like on the side. And then let's do an even more detailed eye. This is something from Neon Genesis Evangelion. I can't say that one. It's the one where they have these robots and there's these. Um, I think there's the main character is Shinji, and then there's characters Ray, and I forget what the other person's name is. It's been such a long time since I've watched that show. I really love I really like that show, and I also love the art style. This is actually what kind of inspired. It was what inspired me in my own art style. Mine doesn't look exactly like theirs. I don't think, maybe I'm just not. I can't really think in terms of it or how I can expand. Like this kind of eye, I would have trouble trying to figure out how this looks on side on, because I just have trouble visualizing it in my head. Of course, with practice, you start getting better at these things. You start to see things that you haven't seen before. I didn't start art and just know these things like, oh, this is closest to you, this is farthest to you. It just took time and just took me just doing it a bunch of times. And then remember, this eye is kind of close to the center here. And you see how this bubble kind of looks more stylized. I kind of like it. Each kind of art, different types of art, invokes certain emotions, and I think that's why certain things gravitate towards how they are. That's why comics are how they are. It's more it's serious, but it has a certain style to it, of like heroism, and it just kind of gives you that feeling. Sometimes it's kind of like something you can't describe. It's just this like, oh, it feels right. If you think about it, sometimes you can kind of create the connections, like why did they use this kind of style for Neon Genesis? Sometimes it's kind of subliminal how these things have what effect these things have on us. This is sort of like a girl's eye in Neon Genesis. And then I'll try the male eye. I don't know what it is about Neon Genesis that just makes me like their art style so much, but I think it kind of speaks to something. It speaks to something kind of deep, and it just kind of it's realistic, but it's sort of cartoony at the same time. It has this kind of slick look, which I kind of like. It reminds me of sort of an old like 90s art style. And I think it was made in the 90s. It's kind of hard for me to put in the words how this has an effect on me. It kind of makes me feel um, Kind of like how the theme song makes you feel. Kind of like it's sort of epic and it's deep at the same time. So it's just like even the art style kind of has that effect. It has this kind of realism kind of effect, and also this kind of like epicness, but also like this serious kind of epicness. Like it's kind of like they have this serious message to tell you about this story. I wasn't really too satisfied with how it ended, but I've heard that the movies fix it. I haven't really seen any of the movies. I just know what I've heard about them. It has some really interesting themes, Neon Genesis Evangelion. I think Evangelion is how most people know it from, but I have trouble saying Evangelion. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, so I just call it Neon Genesis because it's just kind of sounds. It's just something for me. For me, it's a little bit easier to say. Also, maybe I'm gravitated toward it because it has giant robots. Once you have giant robots in your story, it automatically is a 10 out of 10. So that's a fact. Giant robots make everything better. And these also have kind of different emotions. Actually, I thought this was the eyebrow. I think this is more of the skin that kind of comes in. There's this kind of skin thing that kind of comes over here for different eyes. This is just the wrinkles of the eyelid, and this is a detail I usually leave out when I draw eyes, but it's always good to know. And then sometimes there's this thing over here. There's like a little, and this is like the little like red part of the eye before the eyelid. It's just I think that's just how your eyes kind of sit in your eyes. They have that like extra skin. And I think, you know what? I'm just not going to draw the brow, but this one is more, I think this one's a little bit more focused. At least in the picture I saw this with. She was kind of in a focused, determined look. And again, eyes can tell you a lot, but they also, it's also different kind of emotions. This could be, um, you know, focused. It could also be sad or somber. I don't have an eyebrow to show that, but also I kind of see that from the bubbles. Usually, I kind of think of like sad or somber or like kind of like a sense of wonder here. But just seeing the style and how it all fits together, you see how these emotions play out. And then this one is kind of a focused one. This is a more of a worried one, and I think I don't really reflect it too much in here because the eye is actually like this. I have some references I'm looking at if you're wondering. Eye's a little bit, it's kind of brought up like this, and it kind of takes the same principles that we talked about earlier with the eye being kind of pulled out instead of being squished in. It's kind of pulled out. So it's fun, like even with different styles, you could still see the same kind of patterns. You see the opening, the pulled out, scrunched in. These are just convey different emotions for different types of characters, and these are great for cartoons and real life and everything. They're used everywhere for any type of eye. So I think I'm going to cut it off here. I hope you've learned something. I hope that you enjoyed this. Please give me a like if you enjoyed this thing. This is my first ever official tutorial, so I'm probably going to try and improve my um, how I do these things, and I might also do some things with my camera. I know it keeps coming in and out of focus. I'm not really sure how to fix that yet. But I hope to learn these things, and I hope that you will join me again in the future. Thank you, and have a good day.